Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
My name is Daniel Mercer. I was 34 years old when my girlfriend told me she needed space. We were living in Chicago then, in a small apartment near the lake, the kind of place you rent when you're building something slowly. She stood by the kitchen counter, arms folded, and said almost gently, "I just don't see how this fits into the life I want anymore." She didn't say my name. She didn't raise her voice. She said it like she was declining an invitation. If you've ever had someone speak about your life as if it were a scheduling conflict, you understand the tone. I had spent years believing I was the fortunate one. Her family owned real estate across the North Shore. Her brother was already a partner at a firm before 30. Their conversations revolved around acquisitions, memberships, renovations. I taught literature at a public high school on the South Side. I graded essays at our kitchen table. I believed meaning mattered more than money. They believed money proved meaning. At first, the difference felt romantic. She used to say she admired that I cared about students who would never appear on a donor plaque. I believed her. But admiration, I learned, can quietly become embarrassment. Her parents hosted dinners that felt like interviews. Seating was deliberate. I was often placed at the far end, beside distant relatives or friends' children home from college. Conversations about market trends would drift past me. When I offered an opinion about education policy, someone would smile politely and pivot back to property taxes. Once her father asked what I planned to transition into eventually. I told him I planned to keep teaching. He nodded in a way that suggested patience, as if I were describing a hobby. The humiliations were small. That was what made them effective. At Christmas, her brother received a watch engraved with the family crest. I received a leather planner, monogrammed incorrectly. They laughed about the typo. I laughed too. It seemed easier. She stopped defending me around that time. Not openly. She just let things pass. There was a group chat called Future Founders. It included her siblings, cousins, even in-laws. I had been added once by mistake and removed within minutes. The notification lingered on my phone longer than my access had. Later, I saw a message from her. He wouldn't really get the context. She sent it privately to her sister. I know because her laptop was open on the counter when I walked by. I didn't confront her. I took a photo of the screen instead. A receipt, I told myself. Not for revenge, for clarity. When she asked for space, she framed it as personal growth. She said she felt pulled in two directions. I didn't argue. I asked how long she needed. She said she wasn't sure. 2 weeks later, I saw a photograph of her at a charity gala, standing beside a man in a tailored suit. The caption read, "Aligned at last." The word aligned stayed with me. It sounded strategic. I saved the image. Another receipt. If you're listening to this late at night, and it resonates, you can subscribe or leave a comment. Not for me. For yourself. Sometimes acknowledgement is its own proof. I never asked her for explanations. I never accused her of overlap. I simply stopped calling. I muted the family group threads. When her mother sent a message about an upcoming fundraiser, I responded with a brief regret. I did not attend. They began telling people I had chosen distance, that I struggled with their world, that I needed time to figure things out. I heard this through a mutual friend who meant well. I didn't correct him. Instead, I leaned into my work. I applied for a curriculum leadership role. I spent evenings designing programs for students who had never been invited to galas. I kept my head down. Discipline is quieter than pride. There was one person who noticed the shift. Mrs. Alvarez, a veteran teacher whose classroom was next to mine. She saw me staying late. She brought coffee without commentary. Once she said, "You're building something steady." She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. I began spending Sundays with her family for dinner. Nothing formal. Paper plates sometimes. Laughter that didn't measure worth by income. It felt unfamiliar at first, then necessary. Months passed. I didn't announce my absence. I simply wasn't there anymore. The screenshots remained in a folder on my phone. I looked at them occasionally, not to reopen wounds, but to remind myself that my memory was accurate, that I hadn't imagined the tone. That space had meant replacement. When I was offered the leadership role, it came without applause from her side of the city. I accepted it quietly. I moved into a slightly larger apartment near the school. I bought a second-hand desk. I planted herbs on the windowsill. She texted once that spring. "I hope you're well." No apology. No reference to the gala. I replied, "I am." That was true. What I didn't tell her was that the silence had clarified more than any argument could have. And what I didn't yet know was how far that clarity would carry me. The first time my name appeared in a local education journal, it was because of a pilot program I designed for first-generation students. The article described it as quietly transformative. I liked the adverb, quietly. Recognition arrived in small increments. An invitation to speak at a regional conference, a grant approval, a board position with a nonprofit focused on literacy. None of it felt cinematic. It felt earned. I met Hannah at one of those conferences. She worked in community health. She listened more than she spoke. On our third date, she asked why I saved screenshots on my phone labeled proof. I had forgotten she'd seen them while searching for a photo. I told her the truth. She didn't criticize my silence. She understood it. We built something unremarkable and sturdy. Dinners at home, shared calendars, a son who learned to read at the kitchen table where I once graded essays alone, love that functioned without performance. Years later, my program received national funding. My school was featured in a segment about equitable education. My name was mentioned, correctly pronounced. I watched it with Hannah and our son. Mrs. Alvarez sent a message with a single clapping emoji. 2 days after the segment aired, my phone lit up with a familiar number. Her mother. "We saw you on television," she said when I answered. "We always knew you were destined for something significant." There was no apology for the dinners, no acknowledgement of the group chat, no mention of alignment, just warmth, as if nothing had been edited out of the past. An invitation followed. A gala, of course. This time, as an honored guest. I thanked her for thinking of me. I said my schedule was full. Later, my former girlfriend sent a message. "It's incredible what you've accomplished. We should catch up." The word "should" carried no history. I stared at it for a while. I didn't respond immediately. I was bathing my son. He was telling me about a book he loved. The water was warm. The room was loud with uncomplicated joy. When I did reply the next morning, I kept it brief. "I wish you well." It was not bitterness. It was boundary. Sometimes I wonder how many people experience this kind of erasure and mistake it for personal failure. How many accept polite dismissal as proof they were insufficient? If that question sits with you, you're not alone in it. The family narrative about me shifted once my success became visible. They described me as independent, focused, visionary, words they would not have used when I was grading papers at midnight. I never corrected their earlier version. I never sent the screenshots. The receipts remain archived, not as weapons, but as reminders. Hannah once asked if I ever felt tempted to attend one of their events, just to see their faces. I told her the truth. Curiosity exists. So does peace. I prefer the latter. The last message from my former girlfriend arrived on a quiet Tuesday. "I'm glad you found your path," she wrote. I considered telling her I had been on it all along. Instead, I set the phone down. That evening, I sat at my desk by the window. The herbs were overgrown. The city hummed below. My son was asleep. Hannah was reading in the next room. I opened the folder labeled Proof one final time. I looked at the messages, the gala photo, the comment about context. They felt distant now, like artifacts from a life that required translation. I deleted the folder. Not because I forgave, not because I forgot, but because I no longer needed evidence to trust what I had lived. Outside, the lights along the lake flickered on, one by one, without announcement.